Greetings and salutations, loyal viewers of this channel. My name is Sean, and today we gotta talk about an instance of potential fraud in Philadelphia's crime reward system, because if you guys are unaware, in the city of Philadelphia, they essentially offer $20,000 for tips that lead to an arrest that will ultimately result in a conviction for any murder that occurs within the city limits. Now, of course, this obviously makes sense because in the city of Philadelphia, you have a lot of crime, a lot of homicides, and of course, a stop snitching culture that disincentivizes a lot of people from reporting valuable information to the police. So they decided to counterbalance that with a reward system that hopefully will incentivize what is previously disincentivized by the culture of criminality in that particular region. But it turns out there seems to be a little bit of something beyond the normal terms of use or fine print that we typically see with these rewards programs going on in that city, in that there may not actually be any money or that much money to reward people. Therefore, the city of Philadelphia is just denying them and hoping that nobody will notice. Now, before we get into people not getting their money for turning in murderers, let's talk about you giving me money via actualjusticeword.com/join.
Give me the money. Give me the money. Okay?
Yeah, Tracy. Well, the city offers reward money of varying amounts depending on the type of crime someone submits a tip for. The only disclaimer provided is that the tip has to lead to the arrest and conviction of a suspect. But one family found that even when that happened, their call to police went unrewarded.
So the opening pitch of this local news segment is essentially what I laid out to you in the beginning of this. However, it is important for you guys to understand the additional information that they provided, which is, of course, that they have varying amounts of reward money depending on other crimes, and the $20,000 number is just for the homicides. Now, the reason why this is crucial for you to understand is because when you look at the budget of the reward fund, you're going to realize that the math isn't mathing. The numbers just don't add up, and obviously something suspicious is going on in the city of Philadelphia, and we're not just talking about all the regular ordinary crime within that city.
We have identified Mr. Robert Davis, a 19-year-old black male, as the offender.
When police announced last year that Robert Davis was the suspect in the murder of community activist Josh Kruger, Davis's family was devastated.
It was heartbreaking. It was very heartbreaking.
City officials reiterated the usual reward line during a news conference.
As in every homicide investigation, there's a $20,000 reward for information that leads to the arrest and conviction of Mr. Davis.
2 weeks later, Davis, who was on the run, showed up to his family's home where he and his siblings lived.
He randomly knocked on the door. That's when he came, and then he was, I would say, emotionally unstable or detached.
Karan Davis says he called police in part because he was worried about his brother's well-being.
I was like,
now, you guys might recall this particular case because last year it was making the rounds on social media where people, in my opinion, inappropriately reported Joshua Kruger as a woke activist who is pushing criminal justice reform. Now, while this guy was almost certainly on the left, while he was almost certainly could be described as woke, the fact of the matter is he was an LGBTQ activist and journalist, and he probably had bad views on the criminal justice system, but he was actually murdered by this individual who was discovered through the phone data to be a lover of Mr. Joshua Kruger. So it was a situation where something went wrong. People reported it as a burglary initially. You know, these people were unknown to each other and it was just a straight up robbery. And then they tried to attach some political criminal justice related stuff to this particular case. And honestly, I just think that was incredibly unfortunate and totally unnecessary. However, setting that aside, because I'm sure somebody in the comments is going to remember this and bring it up, this was a straight up case of a murder of a suspect on the loose, and one of his own relatives, in fact his older brother, actually was the person to call the police on him.
2 weeks later, Davis, who was on the run, showed up to his family's home where he and his siblings lived.
He randomly knocked on the door. That's when he came, and then he was, I would say, emotionally unstable or detached.
Karan Davis says he called police in part because he was worried about his brother's well-being.
I was like, I have the suspect that you have the reward for at my house. I'm his older brother, Karan Davis. He's here acting off. Could you come get him and detain him?
Robert Davis was arrested in front of his home without incident. He eventually pleaded guilty to third-degree murder and was sentenced to 15 to 30 years in prison. Karan applied for the $20,000 crime reward.
It was going to take a couple weeks for them to review the information, get everything set, and then I was going to get the money.
Karan says the detective in the case approved the reward and sent it up the chain of command, where it was ultimately denied by Police Commissioner Kevin Bethel.
She gave me a call basically telling me that they didn't approve it. And she said they didn't give her a reason why they didn't approve it.
Now, look, I understand that a lot of people are going to look at the elder brother in this particular instance and have a little bit of cross feelings for him because they're going to point out that he turned on his brother, he turned him into law enforcement. But let us not forget that this person did actually murder somebody in their own home with a firearm. So it makes sense that if you see this person in your house, that you would call the police because, again, he could kill somebody else. He maybe, because he was acting erratically, could kill people within this home as well if you don't churn over what he wants or what he thinks he needs at this moment in time. And again, the whole point of this rewards program is to get people who wouldn't ordinarily call the police on somebody to do so, and this is supposed to be the positive incentive. So again, set aside the particulars of this individual case because it's more about the principle and it's more about the fact that this funding doesn't really exist according to the budget in the city of Philadelphia that we're going to get into. But let's go through the process so you could hear the law enforcement explanation about whether or not this person's denial was legitimate or not, because you can make the case that, sure, I understand why they denied the reward to this guy. I actually think that makes sense based on the circumstances surrounding this, but that still does not account for the budget shortfall, which is why I'm actually covering this story.
A high-ranking source in the police department tells us the denial was because Karan Davis's call to police didn't count as essential information as defined in the department's crime reward policy. PPD defines essential as information independent from that obtained or discovered by law enforcement, which is indispensable in establishing probable cause to arrest and convict any person or persons for homicide. Karan believes his call was essential to police.
I didn't have to call them. I could have just let him came here, did his little episode.
Now again, this is the best information for the police on why they didn't grant the reward money, and essentially it is, listen, we actually want information and tips and whatnot, people to come forward on cases where we don't have suspects and we just need that information that is not otherwise available to law enforcement, so that way we can actually arrest somebody that we would not normally have been able to arrest under almost any circumstances, and then that would lead to the conviction. And that might be a fair justification in your mind for why this guy was denied the reward, but if you're not going to give the reward to somebody who calls in a tip on where this person is while he's at large, then why would we start this segment with a public official announcing that they will give this reward to anybody who can have information that will lead to this arrest, and of course the term of ultimately to the conviction, if you needed them to also provide additional unique evidence that's crucial to the conviction, aka doing the job of the detectives.
City officials reiterated the usual reward line during a news conference.
As in every homicide investigation, there's a $20,000 reward for information that leads to the arrest and conviction of Mr. Davis.
To me, it's a little bit ridiculous in my opinion, because they announced the reward to then fall back on these terms of service, because essentially nothing would have been able to meet the terms of service as laid out by what this statement says, if you understand what I mean.
We do know that some crime rewards have been paid out. According to the city, between 2017 and August of 2023, these homicide cases resulted in 39 rewards for more than $500,000. No rewards have been paid out since then.
So first of all, a couple of things for you to understand about this. One, if you actually lead to information that churns in multiple suspects and they end up getting convicted, you get paid multiple times, as you can see with the repeating names on the same dates on this particular spreadsheet. Two, what you also can observe is the fact that they did pay out nearly $600,000 between 2017 and August 3rd of 2023, but as the local news highlights, there is no payments, or there have been no payments since August of 2023. And this is why I'm covering this story, because it's not about the specifics of the denial of this individual case, in my opinion. It's about the fact that Philadelphia is lying to the public, and they've been lying to the public because their budget for fiscal year 2024 has almost no money in it to pay out this rewards program.
Looking at Philly's budget, the city proposed $20,000 for this fiscal year's crime reward fund. That's enough for one payout. For months, we have been requesting to speak with the police department about its crime rewards. Each time, the department declined.
Yeah, you just heard that right. The budgeted amount for fiscal year 2024 happens to be $20,000, which again, if you were to pay out that reward for one murder case, there are other cases that obviously are valued at less, as we saw by the spreadsheet that was shown to us before. That would only cover one arrest and conviction of one murderer. Even if you had two murderers in the same particular case, and we've already shown that you can actually get paid twice for multiple suspects if you produce information that leads to their arrest, they would not be able to cover it. So in my opinion, the real reason the city of Philadelphia isn't paying out these cases, despite the fact that they are getting approved at lower levels and seem to be overturned at the higher level, is because they don't have the money. The fund is actually fraudulent, which to me is additionally disgusting, because what this is ultimately going to end up doing is disincentivize the very tips that you're going to want. Because now, not only are you assuming the risk of turning on a potential gangbanger and whatnot, or turning on a member of your family, but you're also not even going to get paid for it. And in fact, the system is designed for you to not be paid for it, in that the money is just not appropriated there. And we're seeing that reflected in the fact that nobody has been paid since August of 2023.
We tried asking Commissioner Kevin Bethel at a recent police event.
The crime rewards under your administration.
The what?
Crime rewards.
I'm not doing that.
He went on to say that his team would get back to us.
Okay, because I've been trying for a couple of months. And
I hear you, but everything don't resolve around you.
It doesn't. I know, I've been waiting for 2 months.
Yeah, but you know what? No matter what, it doesn't. And so, and then you'll continue to wait.
Okay, so you're not going to answer why you denied a crime reward to Karan Davis?
Ms. Vargas, you've been supplied a statement.
I've been at
What's the statement on that?
I've been at this for quite some time, and I've never felt so disrespected.
We still have not received a statement from the police department regarding Karan Davis's crime reward.
Honestly, I legitimately hate these big city officials, because what a journalist is actually supposed to do is hold people accountable, get answers for the public on matters that are of interest to the public. And if you have essentially hollowed out the crime reward fund in your city, a city that is afflicted with criminality, and you're not answering questions, you're not answering through the media channels or all these other channels through email and all these different methods, it makes perfect sense for a reporter to approach you at a public event when you're a public servant in uniform and ask you those questions. And you know what? If you don't want to answer that, if you want to decline it, that's one thing. But for this guy to say that he's never felt so disrespected in his life that a reporter dareth ask him a question when he's been at this for a long time is absurd. You are running a scam. You are a police officer. How many cases of fraud have you actually initiated an arrest against, or the Philadelphia police have initiated an arrest against? And what you're running right here is a fraud. If I were to offer for somebody in my family a reward that was going to lead to the information, if, God forbid, something were to happen to them, and not pay that, even though I'm a member of the victim's family, not a member of the state, not a representative of the state, I would still be liable for that. You can't do this in the United States of America, yet the city of Philadelphia is doing this time and time again, and they're hiding behind a very strict interpretation of what requires or counts as a tip, when in reality they're also constantly promoting these rewards in order to initiate those tips, despite the fact that the tips could never meet the high burden that they're putting out. This is absurd to an impossible degree, and I would not only be questioning the police commissioner on this, but I would also be questioning the legislature, the Philadelphia City Council, who budgeted this in and essentially is having this guy deal with the results of that. But you know what? This is where I'm going to leave it. I want to know your thoughts on this whole situation. As per usual, if you like the video, shown by leaving a like, subscribe for more content, follow me on the social medias, support me via the support links in the description of this video. This has been me talking about the city of Philadelphia committing fraud, basically. Till next time.